Hello, my name is David Staples. I've been working in the IT field for a number of years, and I've decided to create a video series to share some tips, tricks, and useful features of a number of different applications. So I hope you find these useful, and thank you for watching. Today we're going to be talking about PHP. What is it, and how is it used? So to start off with, PHP is what we call a recursive acronym. It actually stands for PHP Hypertext Processor. So essentially, basically just repeats the acronym as part of the definition. What the PHP actually stands for within the PHP Hypertext Processor, there's really no telling as far as I've heard, so your guess is as good as mine. So how is it used? PHP can be used for a few different ways. One is standalone server-side scripting, so if you happen to have a PC, then you can install PHP on it and actually do scripting right there. You don't necessarily have to have a web server. It doesn't matter whether you're running Windows or whether you've got a Mac. Perhaps you're running Linux. It also runs on Unix. So PHP is a very flexible language that can actually run on a number of different operating systems. And then of course you can also run it as a server as well. So if you include the module in Apache or IIS or some other sort of web server, you can actually use it to build web pages. And that's how probably most of us know of PHP and what its capabilities are. You can integrate it with HTML and JavaScript and XML and any other sort of languages that you'd like to in there, and combine them all together and turn out a rather functional and nice looking website. Of course, all the looks would come from your CSS, your cascading style sheets, but as far as the functionality, you can certainly provide quite a few functions and features by using PHP for your development. You can also use it for automation of scheduled tasks. I've used it to write scripts that are accessible by a web server, and they get called by either a Windows scheduler or a cron job. The cron job is basically a Unix or Linux setup that automatically runs whatever script you tell it to at certain times or certain intervals. And then of course another use is what we call scraping. You can certainly tell it to go out and, kind of like a web server, or a search engine rather, goes out and looks for information from all the various websites throughout the internet. You can actually go do your own crawling with this and scrape certain pieces of information or scrape images. You can scrape just about any kind of data that you'd like to. So data collection is certainly a popular method of use for PHP as well. So who uses PHP? Well, there's a number of different companies out there that use it, so here's just a few examples. Facebook, we've got MailChimp, Yahoo, Dig, Flickr, Wikipedia is even written in PHP. You've got YouTube, WordPress, Bank of America, Drupal, the White House, Examiner, The Economist, the Huffington Post, Discovery Channel, Georgia Tech, IBM, and Best Buy. So certainly a few names that I would imagine most of us have heard of in that list, and if you haven't heard of any of those, then I'm not sure which internet you've been using. So what do I need? Well, PHP can be run on any of the following. You can have a computer with PHP installed, such as the laptop that I'm using here. I'm actually using a Mac that will be going through some of the other features and actually getting into the code here in later videos. So after this introduction, if you'd like to find out more about PHP and learn to actually write the language, certainly look up some of my other videos, and I can certainly teach you how to use it. Web server with the Apache and PHP module is certainly another option. That is one of the more common options that people use for PHP. And then of course you can have a web server with IIS and the PHP module installed there. IIS, of course, is the Windows web server software, whereas Apache is actually web server software that runs on a variety of different servers. So you can run Apache on Windows, you can run it on Linux, you can use it on Unix. It doesn't really care so much as far as the platform is concerned, whereas IIS is pretty much Microsoft Windows Server specific. So what does PHP look like? Well, here's an example of some code. So we start off by opening our PHP block of code with a less than bracket, the question mark, and PHP. Now, the old way of doing it, which has actually been deprecated and is no longer a best practice, it's actually a best practice to use PHP as part of the opening bracket now, but the old way to do it is actually to leave out the PHP. So if you happen to run across some code that just has the less than bracket and the question mark, don't worry, it is still PHP. It's just the previous version or the previous way of writing the code. So again, the best practice these days and the recommended way to do it is to actually have the PHP included after the less than and the question mark. So next we come down one line and we say echo hello world. And you'll notice that I've got quotation marks around it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the double quotation marks. It can be the single quotes. And we'll get into some of the details as far as the differences between those in a later lesson here. But then you end the statement with a semicolon. Next we've got what we call a variable. So I'm using what we call camel case here, where the first letter of the variable is actually lowercase, and then the first letter of each word within that variable after that is uppercase. Everything else is lowercase in it. So we've got first name, and I'm setting the variable first name to equal David. Again, we're ending that statement with a semicolon. Then we come down here to last name. Same concept. I'm just setting the text staples to occupy the variable last name, and again we're ending the statement with a semicolon. And then next we've got the variable name, and I'm setting that to equal the variable first name with a space in between, and then the last name. So when this is actually written out, it would say David space Staples, just as it's written up here with that space in between. So the dot is actually what joins variables and strings together, perhaps other strings as well. So if I had just the set of quotes here, so instead of saying first name, I could put quotes and then David, and then end the quotes, and then a dot, and then I could open my quotes and then a space there. Of course, that would really be kind of unnecessary, but you could do it. And then, of course, I could put the dot and then either the variable last name, or I could just put another set of quotes with the word Staples in between, or at the end. And then last, we say echo name. So where we built this variable name here, now we're going to echo that out. What does echo do? Echo basically just writes it out to the screen. So if this is a web page, essentially that will write it out wherever the HTML basically is broken to start your PHP block. So essentially the end result of this particular screen, you would see written out two things. You'd see hello world, and then you'd see David Staples. And of course, the way that I've got the code written right now, there's no breaks in between, so it would actually just all run together with no space after the world coming before the D for the David. So it would say hello world David Staples, with world and David really actually showing up as just one word. So probably could have written this a little bit better, but I think you get the point as far as what the code actually accomplishes. So for more information, you can certainly email me at either of the addresses that are on your screen, david@ponytailacres.org or david.staples@mercurypro.com. And of course, feel free to check out my other YouTube videos for a variety of other IT topics, whether it's SharePoint or PHP or any other variety of IT information, and perhaps I'll get into some gardening information here as well. But you guys have a great day. I hope you found this useful, and we'll see you soon.